it is possible for one idea to change the world. And when I was introduced to this, it was what struck me immediately. I wasn't looking to take on something new, but I had to do this. And as Linda talked about, I have a background that's fairly extensive in many areas, and I continue to learn. So this is something that I constantly am looking to expand what's going on, and working with Codebreaker Technology, the world's leading personality technology, because they are not just doing, here's what we learned about people, but they are constantly adding more information into the system to make it work better. So B.A.N.K is blueprint, action, nurturing, and knowledge, but you will also find that it's personality-based, but people-centered. There is a drive for you to try and use this to make profit, but still at the same point, the purpose is driven to bring humanity together and to speak to each other in a way that is respectful, that I'm getting to know you so that I honor who you are. And through that, B.A.N.K has the power to transform revenue and relationships. Whoops, going the wrong direction there. So it really becomes a secret that can help you unlock high performance. So let's talk about sales things and what has been stated by Salesforce as the fact that 67% of salespeople miss their quotas. Now, when you think about that, that's pretty horrific until you find out 87% of salespeople are out there and they don't even feel adequately prepared to make a presentation. So many people have been taught to do one presentation and nothing else. But when you really stop to think about it, 66% of the audience is frequently turned off before you even finish because you didn't speak to them. You spoke about something from a point of view that has no relationship to how they take on life. And then all of a sudden, the 67% missed quotas looks pretty good if only 66 were turned off. You at least won one of those, you know? So Kiyosaki says the ability to sell is the #1 skill in business. And when you think about it, selling is really influencing, and that's really the #1 skill in life. Whether you're talking to your family and hope to influence the kids to do the right thing in the morning to get them out the door and on the way to school, whether you're in a business meeting and you're trying to negotiate something with a client or with a team on how to work through something, you're selling an idea as much as you're selling a skill or a product. So the secret to this is B.A.N.K. And when we look at it, you start to see that sales is not a numbers game. And we can all think of how many times we've been heard, if you want to get a yes, you have to get a no first. But when you stop and think about it, you don't want more no's, you want to get more yeses. And when you start to understand the people that you're trying to engage with, it really becomes clear that it's the people that you really need to engage. And it takes the emotional intelligence that's the key to unlocking that high performance. Emotional intelligence is that ability to understand, manage your own emotions. So when Charity earlier asked about, whoa, I know I can railroad over somebody, she's checking her emotions and what it is that motivates her to really want to get there and get it done fast. That ability to understand, to connect with somebody else's emotions, to be aware of how they're feeling and reacting to something is what gives you that added bonus and able to move faster through anything you're trying to do with them. Harvard Business Review actually called it a groundbreaking paradigm shift to think that really it's emotional intelligence that outpaces intellectual intelligence. And when you think about how emotional intelligence, especially over the last 18 months, has not only affected us in business, but when you think about how testy communications have been, how people's health has been impacted because of the emotions that they either can't relate to of their own or engage with others without irritating, how that's changed relationships and either impacted success in a positive or negative way. 90% of the people who move up a corporate ladder, it's more because of the emotional intelligence than the IQ. And that's because if you've got similar skills and similar backgrounds. They'll look at that and they'll go, who fits in here better? How do we make this thing work so that what is going on really fits with our team? And that's where it really comes down to the personality portion. So B.A.N.K is that lens that allows us to start to not only understand ourselves better, but also increasing our emotional intelligence so that we're able to see others for who they are, not what we want them to be, and how we can start to engage them based on who they are. So Sherry Tree, the creator of this, has spoke at many major universities. And in 2016, San Francisco State validated that this isn't taking what is in other personality profiles and just twisting it around to come up with something called buying personality, but that B.A.N.K truly does predict buying behavior by outlining how we, as we look at this, make a decision. What are those values, those key factors in how we look at this? Sherry wrote a book in 2017 that outlined how this was done, how she did this. And I love this statement from Einstein, who says, any fool can complicate things. It takes a genius to simplify them. None of us are geniuses, but it truly is a simple process that Sherry feels really was more of a divine download than her brilliance, because she asked everybody to identify themselves. And when you start to identify them, recognize them, and see them, you start to see it's not rocket science, it's personality science. So the science in here gets to the 4 personalities. And for us in B.A.N.K, it's blueprint, action, nurturing, and knowledge. And it all kind of goes back to those same ideas of Hippocrates and his 4 temperaments and how he simplified being able to do that. And through the years, we've seen lots of millionaire personality profiles that are out there. And I love that there's different things I've learned from every single one of them. And Linda has put any of us that are in Leadership Global through the predictive index. And that gives us a great way to see how we behave and how we interact with people. Yet, what I love about B.A.N.K is it doesn't make any of these the wrong choice. It is that added extra thing that steps in as a quick decision process to go, oh, this is how they look at these things to make a decision. What are those key points that helps them to work with their psychology and do it with biology, B-U-Y, why they buy. So the missing link becomes understanding how that buying decision is made. And that's where you start to be able to, with biology, B-U-Y-ology, the science of buying behavior, start to understand who you're talking to and why they make the decision. So that's why we say we crack the code so you can take it to the bank. And if any of you recall in the Da Vinci Code, you had to twist this around, match up that perfect profile, and imagine that right now, all the people you know have their own little bank code. And even though it's 4, there's still infinite possibilities of the depth to which they choose to work with those. So Tony Robbins says, let your prospect determine your presentation. So when you start to understand who you're talking to, why they make a decision based on specific values, you start to understand how to frame your conversation, how to ask them to participate in anything. And that's where we really want to get into the understanding of the difference between blueprint, action, nurturing, and knowledge. So when you stop and think about the common mistake of you're typically speaking from who you are. I'm nurture, I'm always looking out for who everybody else is. But if I'm speaking to that, I'm really speaking to 1 out of 4 of these personalities. So that means 3 out of 4 times you can say, I missed it. I didn't connect with them because I was presenting from me. So when you think about that, that makes sense to why we keep thinking we're getting more no's. It makes sense to why we're not succeeding, because you haven't phrased what you want to say to them in a way that engages with them. Shalley Group, more than 20 years ago, identified the fact that only 18% of the time will you buy from a salesperson who doesn't match your personality type. So think about if you can put your phraseology into a thing that matches their personality type. You're not becoming somebody else, but you're mirroring how they look at something. And in that way, you're jumping into that 82% of success by being aligned with them in your conversation. So let's kind of look at the system of B.A.N.K. Blueprint, blue, a cool color. When you think about it, you can look at the box on the left. And Blueprint really like the security of being inside a framework. They are looking for systems, predictability, a process that's easily followed. They are all about the tradition. We show the T-square and a blueprint and a little compass there on the left. So because my background was architecture, a lot of people thought, you must be a blueprint. However, really, I drew blueprints. I didn't think like a blueprint. I created a system and a process in a building, but that wasn't the thing that motivated me. What motivated me came from someplace else. Action. Now, these are those movers, shakers. Man, these are the woohoo, I'm in the front of the room. You want to wait until I show up because I'm not on time most of the time. I'm the one who's pissing off, excuse my language, that blueprint person who showed up 30 minutes early. And when you show up on time, they're looking at you like you're late. So the action person is like, don't put me in a box. I'm ready to rocket off into the sky. I want to be number one. How can you introduce me to the coolest people in this room? I want to be on stage and I want to shine. They're the ones who are all about risk, get to the bottom line fast. How cool am I? And did you notice I'm in my finest? You know, they wear things for bling, for fashion, and they are frequently the ones who are up in the front of the room telling you just how great they are. And then they'll turn and say, so let's talk about something else, but why don't you tell me how great you think I am? You know, you can find these people all around you and you love them because they're fun to be around, they're charismatic. And then there's the nurture. Now let's look at that recycle on the box. These are the people who are concerned about how to take care of the environment, how to give you a hug. You know, they are all about being connected to a crowd. And they're being connected to a crowd does not mean that they're standing in front of the room. These are the ones who are collecting the people to make sure that everybody in the room feels taken care of, served, is comfortable. They've got that heart of gold. That's why you see this beautiful yellow sunflower off on the side. They're all about growing things and connecting things. And frequently, an action person will think a nurturing person doesn't have any drive, but all of a sudden they find out that nurturing person can introduce them to somebody that's really cool, but they never ever thought to ask them. You start to understand that the nurturing collects people instead of money frequently. They're about the community they build and how they serve it. And then we've got the knowledge and the green here, where they are the ones who created the box. They had the magnetic idea. They could see it from A to Z. They are all about learning more, making sure it technically works correctly. And if there's a problem with something, they'll spot it before anybody else. But they're also frequently green with envy because this is the person who could create it. But they're not the showman who turns up at the front of the room to talk about it. They're the one standing at the back of the room going, that action person is up there claiming like this was something they built when I did it, but I don't have that need to stand in the front of the room, but I wish they would recognize me for what I contributed. So frequently you'll find knowledge people, their head kind of tucked down, almost like they felt forgotten. And when you can recognize that they just want to be seen for the brilliance that they bring to your team, you can engage them much faster. People will say, knowledge, I can't sell to knowledge people. And we jokingly will say it takes forever to sell to knowledge because they have to vet it themselves. Knowledge convinces themselves to buy. You never convince them to buy. So think about it. What's your B.A.N.K code? And at some point, you've got all four of these. You can see behind my name, I lead with nurture. I'm action right behind it, knowledge tucked tight behind that. And I'm the girl who says, blueprint, I've figured out what the blueprint is because I've served the other three. You know, when I look at that card, I take care of the things on blueprint by making sure I've looked at them through the lens of the other three. It doesn't mean I don't respect it. It's just not what drives me. And when you understand that, you won't start by talking about the process to me first. You'll talk about the community. You'll talk about how you connect and make eye-to-eye contact and care about what you're doing. And when you start to understand those things about others, you're able to do that. So that's where, like I showed you earlier, the bank cards and the 6 intelligences we work through the lens of B.A.N.K. We start with that personality base. We layer in the sales intelligence. We wrap it up in a bow with the emotional intelligence. And then we take the tools of the artificial intelligence and start to see how to technically dig deeper so that you can build the business intelligence and then take and wrap the heart of spiritual intelligence where you put your passion into it. And we talk about in spiritual intelligence that as much as money is what so many people are driving for, when you really think about it, money is a base need in much the way on Maslow's pyramid, you're talking about security. Money creates that security that allows you to build the relationships, the knowledge to go after what you're passionate about. And when you can see things through the lens of B.A.N.K. for all 6 of these intelligences, you all of a sudden are operating in life in a way that keeps life flowing on all levels. Home, business, everything comes together. And the AI is such an incredible tool. I use it daily. It really does help you to close more sales because you're shortening that time it takes you to understand who you're dealing with. So we call it the solution because it ends up putting together a package of tools that you can use both online, in person, one-to-one, trainings and such. And that's how the power of B.A.N.K. allows you to really create and transform the world to build your better relationships, create more revenue in all different ways. So my gift to all of you is I'm going to put in the chat the Crack My Code site. You can go there and you'll see the 4 cards on a digital screen. They'll drop and drag into the 4 spots. Through that, you can then get a free report about you. The value of that report is $97. And then I'd love to schedule a one-on-one to discuss that with you and also share with you the fact that I get a second report that's called a sales report. That's how to engage you for a yes. And you'll see here what we talk about, and we're speaking all 4 codes when I say to you, look at the information on the card. That's allowing the knowledge to anchor in all the information before they make a decision. Read the values and sort them in order. That's speaking to the blueprint's need for process and a list. The understanding and serving you better is the nurturing, and doing it faster to save time is the action. So even in those 4 statements, we've already engaged you with the language of B.A.N.K.